Hi, today I'm going to talk to all the teachers out there about a lesson plan. A lesson plan is rightly said to be a blueprint of your class. A lesson plan will take you miles in your classroom and will help you reach the hearts, the mind, and the heads of the students in different ways and with respect to a number of parameters. Lesson planning could be based on different philosophies and approaches, but the basics of lesson plans remain the same. Educators across the world have tried out a number of lesson plans, and a number of experimental studies prove that lesson planning helps a teacher be integrated, focused, more confident, prepared, systematic, holistic, advanced in the planning and thinking process, rooted in the content as well as in the culture, and gets fresh air into the classroom every time the teacher makes an attempt to teach. Lesson planning is the root and the fruit of any successful teaching process that takes place. The better your lesson plans, the better your teaching. The better your lesson plans, the better your learning. The better your lesson plans, the better your deliverance of the content. Teachers across the world have practiced lesson planning and have revealed the secrets of its success. A lesson plan has a few major components. The first component of the lesson plan is the objectives. Objectives are of two types, specific objectives and general objectives. Specific objectives tell us what we want to achieve in the near future, that is in your classroom. For example, the students will be able to write the points. The students will be able to read a sentence. The students will be able to identify the adjectives or solve some numerical sums. So these kind of objectives that a teacher frames that are short term, that can be accomplished or achieved during a 30 or a 40 minutes class session is called as specific objectives. It's always better to have your specific objectives listed well. The specific objectives together help you form the broader objectives that are called as the general objectives. For example, you're teaching the concept of mathematical operation division. So you say that students will be able to understand, students will apply the information in their day-to-day lives. In the specific objectives, we normally have students will be able to. But when you talk of a general objective, you basically have sentences like student will understand, students will know, students will explore, and so on. So the general objectives are broad, whereas your specific objectives are very, very narrow. The second part of your component in the lesson plan, which is very important, is the approach that you take to teaching. And that approach is based on your content. So in part 2, we need to decide two things. One is the content that we need to cover and the approach that needs to be adapted to teach that particular lesson or a concept. Now, the concepts are basically the underlying theme that we try to explain to the students in any chapter or a unit. The teacher has a gut feeling that a particular topic could be taught in a particular way. This is very natural to all the teachers. You basically need to determine what kind of a deliverance of content you are going to do, keeping in mind your learners and the available resources. The more resources, the better you're teaching. The more reference, the better you're teaching. More activity and explanation, the better you're teaching. More receptivity from the students and your teaching will be best. So based on the situation, pick up a particular line of action that you would be following to teach your lesson. Teachers across the world have tried and tested participatory approaches to teaching. And these approaches like constructivism, collaborative work, and so on help the students develop a very broad framework to 90% of the topics that are being taught. Real-time teaching is the best way of teaching when practical Experiments, practical examples, illustrations, and instances are given to the students. Having understood the specific objective, general objective, approaches to teaching, and the methodology to teach, as well as your content, now you need to actually bifurcate the entire classroom, the entire lesson plans into a section. So simply make columns. The first column, the teacher activities. So your teaching point, your teacher activity, followed by the student's activity, and how would you be evaluating that? For example, you are going to teach the topic division, as I just said earlier. So your concept would be division. Teacher's activity. So what is the teacher going to do in the classroom? Solve the numerical on the board, give an illustration, do an activity. You would be showing a video clipping. What would you do? List that. When you're doing that, what would your students do? What instructions would you give to your students? Write that in the teacher's column, and the activities should be listed in the student's column as per the instructions. The teacher's activity and the student's activity will go hand in hand, so they go parallel. And yes, we need to test whether the students have understood every part of your concept so that you can proceed further at ease and happily during your lesson. So this kind of a framework helps the teacher in penning down and in carrying the entire process of teaching in a more translucent manner. When I say translucent, I mean that you are able to actually see what the child is delivering during your lesson, and you are more hopeful about the future.